Tonight, part two, be your own stylist. Let's talk about the rest of my tips for creating cool fashion portraits. Stay tuned. Hey, gang, I am Joe Edelman, and welcome to another episode of The Last Frame. It's great to be back. Took a week off last week for the holidays. I hope that you all had a great Thanksgiving. And if you're not in the United States, I hope you had a great Thursday and, of course, a really good weekend. You know the drill. If you're here, check in, leave a little message. Let me know you're here already. FN89's here, Dale's here, Danny's here, Lynn's here in New York. I got Alan in Denmark. All of you are part of a growing global community of photographers in over 100 countries who tune in to check out The Last Frame every week. Renee just snuck in here from Switzerland. Great to see all of you. So, obviously, we want to continue with the discussion we were having about styling tips and all the material. And last time I had a bunch of props and I showed you some different materials. This time I want to walk you through some of the images and just give you a little bit of the sense of how it came about, what materials I used and why, just to kind of get you into that mind space, right? So, in case you missed it, and the link, I'll make sure that I share it in the description below the video. It was this one that you see right down here, Easy Tips for Styling a Fashion Portrait. It was 2 weeks ago because I took a week off last week, okay? Oh, you know what? Also, just to let you guys know, because I think today's the last day, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, tomorrow. So today's your last day. If you're in the US, if you're thinking about attending Imaging USA, it's in January, right? So it's January, I want to say 16, 17, and 18. It's a Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Or if you've got time the Thursday before that, I'll be there doing a full day workshop. We'll talk about that in a second. But they have discounted the rates for the expo. It's $59. Normally it's $99. That ends today. So that includes all the classes, all the events, everything that's happening for the 3 days of the main event, January 16, 17, and 18. If you do the pre-con classes like my workshop, they cost extra, okay? But you can save yourself 40 bucks. If you're not a member of PPA, now's the time to join because then you get to go for free. So it offsets the cost of your membership the first year. It's a benefit. You get to attend your first Imaging USA for free. But I really encourage you, if you're able, make it to this event. We have 3 big photography trade shows in the United States, well, every year that we're not in a pandemic, right? The big ones, we've got Photo Plus in New York, happens every October. We have Imaging USA that happens every January into February. And then we have WPPI that happens every kind of February into March. All 3 of them are great shows. Photo Plus is kind of more of the generalist show, has a little bit of everything for everybody. And then you have Imaging USA, which is Professional Photographers of America, which is primarily portraits, weddings, but believe me, there's stuff there for everybody. There's stuff about commercial photography, advertising photography, a little bit of everything. Classes, hands down, best in the industry that you're going to get anywhere, with the best speakers, with the most information. And then WPPI, another great event. That one happens in Las Vegas. Also, great educational track. So WPPI is for portrait and wedding photographers also. It's a little bit more of a commercialized flavor than PPA when you go to that event. Great event, but PPA is the one. If you had to pick just one, make it Imaging USA, hands down. And by the way, next week I'm getting paid to do a little commercial for them. This week I'm not getting paid. I'm just telling you because I don't want you to miss out on this discount, right? So this is not sponsored. These are my words, my thoughts, my opinions. My pre-con class, if you are interested in that, that actually happens the Thursday before this all takes place. So that's going to be on Thursday, whoops, I'm on the wrong page there. On Thursday, the 13th of January. And it is literally, I'm not exaggerating, a full day. Let me go down here and find my page. And whoops, did I miss myself somewhere? I did. There he is. Um, so oh, that's not my page. Let's see if I can find the page here, and I'll tell you all the details what we're gonna do. But here's the cool part while I'm finding it, and I want to share the link with you. There it is. Portrait photography, create the difference, make it fun, market it, and sell it. So this is like everything, start to finish. We're there for a full day, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. We're going to start out with all the planning, prep, everything that goes into creating great portraits and the cool fashion and beauty portraits that I do. Then we are going to style them. We're going to work with a makeup artist. We're going to have models. We are going to shoot some. And then we're also going to talk about the business side of it. How can you actually make money doing these? People see these images that I do and they think, oh, well, that's really cool, but how could I possibly make money doing that? I hate to tell you, commissions for images like this, you can easily pull in three, five, seven, $10,000 a session if you're doing it right. We're going to cover all of that. So I will put the link in the chat for the schedule. And from there, you'll find the links to also go ahead and be able to um, do the registration. So I would encourage you, check it out. Really, really awesome event. Okay. So back to the styling stuff that we were talking about, right? So last week I showed you a couple of the images or 2 weeks ago, my goal being to kind of give you a sense of really how easy they actually are to do. And now, I had a couple people reach out to me and like, Joe, you make it sound like it's so simple. Every time I try something like this, I can't even come close. Look, I'm sorry, but the answer to that dilemma, it's practice. You have to be willing to try. Now, I can't take full credit for this stuff that I do on several levels. And it's really important that you understand that because collaboration is a huge, huge part of this process. I was very, very fortunate for about 15 years. I worked with a makeup artist. She is Russian. She is currently based in New York. Her name is Natalia Igorova. She probably one of the most talented and creative people that I have ever met in my life. And I watched her for a long time. And I watched her with hair, I watched her with makeup, I watched her with crazy materials. And when it comes to creativity, this woman was fearless. She would have an idea in her head and she would just begin shaping things and moving things and trying things. And if it didn't work, it didn't stop her. It didn't frustrate her. She just kept working at it and just kept playing with it until her vision came to life. And that in and of itself was actually very, very, very inspirational. And it's the piece of advice that I give to all of you. You've got to be willing to fail. You don't always have to have all the answers. You don't always have to know how to get it right. You don't always have to have the full idea. Honestly, for me, gang, a lot of the times my really, really cool ideas come because I started with a really, really simple, really boring, really predictable idea. And then along the way, I stumbled onto something else and I saw things and the idea developed, right? So again, we talked about just a quick review. The majority of the shots that you see me do, these fashion portraits, the beauty portraits, there are no outfits, so to speak. The subjects are generally wearing tube tops, or I'm taking material and just draping it over them and kind of creating what is the top. So in a lot of these shots, as you look close, you will notice that the subject has bare shoulders and I basically drape something over top of that. There's another thing that I want to point out to all of you, and this came up in my mentoring group. Every Monday night, we do a video meetup and we have a discussion. And a couple of members of my group are trying to work on, developing their skills doing these kinds of images. And we were looking at some lighting. And one of the things that I want you to notice as I'm just going to quickly cycle through these shots while I'm saying this so that you're looking at the images. The way that I set my lighting, the way that I do my post processing on my images, 99.9% of the time, my subject's face is the lightest part of the image. Now, you may have a bright yellow background. It's very, very bright, but when it comes to the color and the detail, the subject's face is lighter than everything else. That way, all of the attention is going to the face. Why do I do that? Well, number one, obviously, I want the attention on the face, right? That's what we're making the picture about. But number two, it's a way for me to influence people who look at the picture. It's a way for me to influence what they're going to see and to ensure that they see what I want them to see. So when I have shots where there's a lot of skin or a lot of material, whatever it is, I have almost always got the face lighter than the rest of the image. Okay. So it's a little trick. It's not a rule. So please don't go out and take it as like, okay, that's what I have to do. No, you don't have to do it. And I don't do it all the time, but I do it most of the time. You'll notice even in a shot like this, look at her face, look at her shoulders. That's very intentional, right? I want the attention up at her face. That's the idea. Okay. So let's go through some of these and honestly, let's just look at what's really going on here. Number one, this shot. So obviously I did composite in a background in this shot. This compositing technique, probably not next week, but maybe the following week, I will do a last frame episode and I will show you guys how I composite my background textures and patterns in. It's super, super simple if you're working in Photoshop. And even with some of the new tools that are coming out in like some of the Skylum, the Luminar products and things like that, I believe DxO also has some capabilities now. You can do it in other programs as well. In fact, Danny asked me a question. Danny, do you use Lightroom or Photoshop or Capture One for most of your work? Right now, at this point where I'm at, I use primarily Photoshop. Occasionally, I will use Luminar, but here's my workflow. And I'm telling you folks what I do. You're not going to hear me say what's best, especially not for you. I'm going to give you both sides of the story, right? So I hate Lightroom, just my personal opinion. It's a great program, very powerful. It is perfectly suited for a lot of people, a lot of photographers, generalists, people that shoot weddings, events, even some portrait work. If you're not doing a lot of compositing and layering work and manipulation and high-end retouching, Lightroom is the bomb. My issue with Lightroom is I had a very good system architecture for filing my images long before Lightroom came about. And Lightroom, of course, requires that I import and export my files. I can't just open files and work on them and be done with it. That's really annoying when you've already got a system. So that's the only reason I don't use Lightroom. So instead, I use Adobe Bridge, which is the program that you're seeing on my screen right now that I'm sitting in the middle of, okay? Adobe Bridge is essentially Lightroom without the import export. It is missing some of the other, kind of add-on features in Lightroom, but from Adobe Bridge, I can open up any file into Camera Raw. Camera Raw is the exact same piece of software that runs the develop panel in Lightroom. In other words, Photoshop and Lightroom actually share the plugin. If you were to go find that plugin in your system files on your Mac or your PC and just rename it randomly, neither Lightroom nor Photoshop would launch on your computer. They share that piece of software. Okay. So even though they look a little different, same tools, same adjustments, same everything. Right. So for me, Photoshop with Bridge for all of my culling and then Camera Raw for my core processing. If I'm doing images of my grandkids, if I'm photographing, one of my grandsons playing baseball or playing soccer, or I'm doing family pictures or things like that, where I'm not doing all kinds of retouching, where I'm not doing all types of layering and masking and photo manipulations, then I'm absolutely using Luminar. It's just super simple, super powerful, great tools. Even this past year, I've shown you some images that I did of my oldest grandson playing baseball. If it was kind of an overcast, hazy day, it was actually great if I was doing like wide angle shots to be able to swap out a sky and Luminar. It's super fast, super easy. And yeah, Photoshop does it too. But Luminar is just, it's a really quick system to work with for like basic edits like that. And it's getting to the point where honestly, it's going to make sense. Not yet. I'm not quite ready yet, but it's going to make sense for me to start doing all my processing in Luminar because I can pull images in and out of Photoshop, using Luminar as a plugin. So that also gives me the ability to do my compositing and all that. So, Danny, there's kind of no right or wrong. It's really what works for you. Back when I shot with Nikon, Capture One was my primary RAW processor. So the thing you got to understand, gang, about Capture One is essentially it's a RAW processor. So it's not doing a lot of the things that Photoshop does, or even some of the things that Lightroom does. But when it comes to the raw processing, Capture One does it. Raw processing and color, Capture One does it better than anybody. It's just that when I went to the smaller files with Micro Four Thirds, I really wasn't getting the benefit from Capture One that I was when I was with the bigger files on Nikon. You know, and it's not because I'm an Olympus ambassador, but the files come out of my Olympus cameras. I love the way they look. They're ready to go. And so I just really kind of migrated away from Capture One, only because I really wasn't seeing benefit with the files that I'm working with now. If I was still shooting full frame, I would almost definitely probably still be using Capture One for sure. Okay, so Danny, I hope that helps. So, anyway, 2 weeks. I'll show you guys how I do my masking, my texture net. Super, super simple, gang. It really is. It's like super, super easy. So if this is something and I know you've seen photographers doing it. It's one of those things that's really popular. It's really trendy now. Don't be afraid of it. Really easy to try. Okay. Cloud strife. Ooh, this is a question. How important is raw processing prior to going into retouching software? It's everything. Here's the thing about processing, and not to get off track because I really want to show you guys this stuff, but here, super important. Here's the thing about processing, and I can't stress this enough. Your cameras, I don't care what brand you have, your cameras were designed with the idea that you would shoot raw and you would process your images. That is the only way that you maximize the quality potential out of your camera. That's a fact. All of that is a fact. Now, what they also did as a convenience feature, if you're in a hurry, they added in the ability to shoot JPEGs. JPEGs, remember, the camera's doing the processing, right? A JPEG is a compressed file. So the software in the camera is basically saying, okay, ones and zeros. We'll keep this one, this one, this one, dump that one. Oh, we don't need that one. Let's get rid of this one and this one. We're going to keep that one. And it's making the decisions for you and it's saving the file. That JPEG file, all the information that's left after they've disposed of what they've done to compress it, that information's baked in. You can try and edit it, but you are going to have very limited ability to edit it, much less so than when you're dealing with raw files. So I'm sorry, but if you really, really care about your image quality, you're going to shoot in raw, you're going to process first. And then if you're doing compositing, retouching, all that kind of stuff, then you do that second. And for me, it's Photoshop. So Cloud Strife, I hope that helps. Okay. So this shot that you're looking at here, again, it's a tube top, super, super simple. This is like a 2-yard section of yellow upholstery vinyl that I literally just kind of folded it over because it's thick and it's heavy. Folded it over, created the peaks, and right out of the frame down on the bottom here on camera right is a big A clamp that's just clamping it together, and that's it. And then we took a small piece on the end of it and cut it to make a headband, wrapped it around, and that's also just clamped in the back. And then my makeup artist did the hairstyle over top. These next 3 images I showed you last week, I showed you that one last week too. This one actually, there's really no outfit, but the add-on, just so you're thinking beyond material, it's actually hair extensions. So all of these braided pieces were actually clip-ons that my makeup artist added, and then we wrapped them around, her neck. I showed you this fuzzy piece in the last episode. I had it in my hands, pair of glasses. The fact that those glasses have that bright reflection, all that is the softbox reflected in the glasses, right? So when you do something like that, you do have to be a little bit careful and pay attention so that you have the glasses completely reflecting it. So you're not seeing like the edge of the softbox or the edge of your umbrella. And then on camera right, behind the subject is another flash aimed forward that has the blue gel, and that's creating the blue edging that you see here. Beyond that, bare shoulders, and a tube top. This thing was big enough that it kind of falls down over them. And, it's not just like wrap it around and, okay, we're done. This is another mistake that I see a lot of beginners make when they start to do this kind of stuff. You take it and you just wrap it around her neck. It's fuzzy, and that fuzzy stuff is loose. Some of it winds up sticking on the makeup, on the face. Some of it kind of lifts up, other stuff. It's all over the place. So you have to take time and go through and brush things down, clean it up. Even as I look back on this shot, I've told you guys before, I'm really, really picky about my own work. I really wish that I would have pushed this section here down more so that I had a nice clean jawline. The fact that that jawline isn't super clean really bothers me. It just does. I'm a real freak about details there. Okay. Another one. This is just a piece of red tulle. I took the ends of it and bunched it up around her shoulders, and then just left about a 4 foot section sticking out, and turned on a fan, had my makeup artist hold the top of it behind the model, and then just let the fan blow the material and the hair, and experimented to get shapes that were interesting. Originally, the way that I started this one, I was thinking about having this material kind of blow across the front of her forehead, and I wasn't getting things that looked interesting. It was very blocky when it came across. Plus, it was really hard to control it, and it just made the hair look messy behind the red tool. And I wanted the blowing hair, but once it was behind the tool, it just looked like it wasn't combed. It didn't look like it was blowing, right? So the answer was take that behind her and creating the angle that goes in the opposite direction of her face. So I've got her face going up this way, and I've got the tool going in the other direction. Creates a nice set of dynamic diagonal lines, which are always great for composition. Okay. Two pieces of material, bare shoulders. Again, material wrapped around the shoulders. This is actually a fairly early one. I did this one. When did I do this one? This was done in, let's see, 2009. So this is an old one. And again, this is one that I actually should go back. Now listen closely. I should go back and I should reprocess this image. So I've had people ask me for like, you really do that? Yeah, from time to time I do. Because since 2009, not only has the post-processing software gotten better, but my skills have gotten better. I'm always working to improve my skills. So a couple of things about this shot, I still love the shot, but a couple of things about it that I don't like in hindsight. I've become much, much more pickier about material ends and edges. So you see this edge here, I just don't like the fact that I can see that it's a seam that's been folded over and sewn. But the one that I hate is this one here that's an edge that's just a raw edge. It literally would take less than 3 minutes to clean that up in Photoshop. I should have cleaned it up. I can only assume this far down the road that back in that time at 2009, either I really wasn't that good at doing that or there was something about the software that just made it more challenging. I would also go through and I would clean up these lines with the hair a little bit more where you see the rough hair. Again, other than that, I actually still love the shot. I love the feel, the vibe, all of it. But those are things that I definitely would revisit and I would clean up. Two things here. This little headpiece, found it on Amazon on a clearance for about $6. I've used it in two pictures. I still have it. I've used it in two pictures. I've only ever finished this image. The second time that I used it, it kind of felt cheesy, the result that I came up with. So I've never published it, never actually used the image. So I'll probably wind up using it again someday at some point in time when I find the right idea to go with it. But beyond that, it just purple, satiny, kind of transparent satiny material. It's wrapped around, and the model is actually holding it in her hand, and we've wrapped it around her shoulders. So she's really doing all the work. The only other assist, you see how the material comes up in the back? In order to keep it, this material is really light. In order to keep it up there, a little tiny plastic clip in the back of her hair and on the back of this headpiece is keeping it lifted so it doesn't slide down. That's it. Super, super simple. In this case, this shot is done with three lights. Key light on camera left and high. Three lights. Sorry, two rim lights. There is strobe with an orange gel, on the back right, strobe with an orange shell on the back left. And yes, the background is texture overlays added in. This was photographed on originally. It's photographed on a purple background, dark purple, but the purple was just too much. And so I went with the texture and added it. But just 3 simple lights, that's it. Okay. You guys saw how this one was done recently, so I won't go through that. This one was the inspiration for that red and yellow one. Um, there's a video on my YouTube channel where you can actually see behind the scenes of me shooting this one. But again, the material was actually clipped onto the tube top behind the model, fan laying on the floor, blowing the material up and over her head. I was actually shooting the picture from behind her. I was shooting tethered, so I could see the live preview on the computer screen, and I could see the images popping up. I was using a remote control. My makeup artist was behind the camera, giving the model directions, look straight ahead, keeping her head and her chin level, and I was experimenting with getting the material to fall and everything. And then one of the things that I wound up adding partway through shooting it was grabbing some of the material and having her hold it on her chest so that I could get this little bit in front of her, because all of the bare shoulders were, it was actually a little bit distracting. It was a bit much. And then again, I want you to notice in post processing how I've really kind of dialed down the rest of the image to bring her face forward. It creates a lot of depth, really gives focus and attention where you want it. So it's part in camera lighting, part post processing, but the key being to really highlight the face without making it super, super obvious. Now that I've told you, every time you look at one of my pictures, the fact that the face is lighter is going to kind of scream at you. So maybe I shouldn't have told you, but that's the trick. You're looking for that balance point. You're looking for that balance point where people aren't necessarily going to notice it, but it's there, right? If you go too far, then it becomes really obvious, right? You see everybody working with the optical spots now. You know, that's not, you don't want it to start looking like an optical spot. If you're going to do that, use an optical spot, right? It's meant to be subtle. It's meant to influence the viewer, but you don't want it to be super, super obvious. Okay. I'm going to jump through a couple here really quick since I'm running out of time. There's 2 things going on in this shot. Aside from the makeup, of course, there is some textured material that's wrapped around her shoulder, bare shoulders, wrapped around her shoulders and just kind of poofed up in the middle. And then cellophane from a dollar store just wrapped around and poofed up. And that creates the shape. The feather collars, I've used these a couple of times. It's about time for me to retire the feather collars. I've got 3 or 4 shots that I've done with these now that I really, really, really like. So until I come up with some other kind of crazy idea that it doesn't look like the same feather collar. But again, Amazon, I got these for less than $20. And they're really cool. They've got a little bit of purple and green highlight to them. So for color, you can do some really neat stuff. In this case, I wanted to do, the black and white. This one here is a combination of 2 different types of materials that you see me using. The black on the bottom is black vinyl, similar to the yellow vinyl that I showed you in the beginning, and then red tulle that was shaped around, clipped up underneath her hair in the back, and then the hair was teased out over top of it to get that kind of almost like Medusa vibe to it. Okay. Um, there's that piece again. Second shot. I lied. I did process it, but I've never reused it. Okay. I like the other one better because of the purple and the green colors, but there it is being used again. This one, so the quote unquote outfit for this, it's 2 things that you wouldn't expect. So everything that you're seeing on the bottom of the shot is actually a prom gown flipped inside out. So the model's wearing a tube top. This is the bottom of a prom gown dress with like all of the tulle in that inside it. So it's flipped inside out. So we get the texture, right? And then the background that you're seeing here is a pink inflatable clamshell. It's a swimming pool float. I set it up on a stand behind her, and then I put a strobe behind it to get the glow. So no trickery in the sense that I'm not adding all kind of gels and everything else. right? It's literally a big inflatable swimming pool float that I've put a light behind. Anytime I can find that stuff, that kind of stuff, like at the end of summer, when it's all, all that swimming pool stuff is on clearance, it's always bright colors. I love bright colors, right? So I'll always grab stuff like that. And then, you can put light through it. It's almost like putting a light through a balloon. It'll glow and you use pieces of it and use sections of it. It creates really, really cool backgrounds. Um, this black material, I use this black material a lot. You can see it's actually the same black material there, but I have a light with a blue gel that's shining through it. And this was actually done as part of a demo for Photo Plus. So the model was actually wearing a sweater. So if you look close, it's like, oh yeah, she's wearing like a basic turtleneck sweater, right? So it's kind of creating something fancy out of nothing, right? In that regard. Similarly, there's the same sweater, but you can't see it. If you look really close, you can tell she's wearing it. So I've got enough of the material bunched up. So again, this is also, understanding that you can create lots of different things out of the same stuff with a little bit of effort. The black vinyl that you saw me use in this picture, this is the same black vinyl here. Um, More cellophane there. Feather boas, which you can buy in a craft store, you can buy on Amazon, super, super cheap. And then my makeup artist took some of the feathers and we actually glued them onto her eyelids to kind of create these, big, crazy, eyes. It's about experimenting, right? Simply about experimenting. This is a case where the model was wearing a tube top and then we took some fuzzy material and wrapped it around her chest. She has really, really long hair. So I had my makeup artist do a ponytail on the top of her head, that's really high. And then I put my makeup artist on a step stool. We twisted the hair up really tight. The makeup artist held it out of frame, and then we did 1, 2, 3, and she unspun it and let go of it. And so the shot is as the hair is unraveling and starting to fall. Only took 6 or 7 frames to get the shot. And you'll notice a lot of times when I'm doing something like that where there's all kind of crazy stuff going on, just like, this picture or this picture with all the chaos. Don't give your model 50 things to do because you're only making it harder, right? Because everything your model does is going to impact all the other things that you're trying to do in the shot. So frequently when I do stuff like that, I literally will have the model give me a dead stare. If the girl's pretty enough and the makeup looks good enough, people notice, right? So, but even in this case, again, I want you to notice face is just slightly brighter than the shoulders and the rest of the image. So it's kind of a consistent thread that I do throughout, pretty much all of my imagery. Okay. All right, gang. Charles, great to see you here live. Thank you, man. So, you've got a bunch of ideas. My challenge to you is try. We're coming up on a new year in a couple of weeks, right? We could do New Year's resolutions, but forget the New Year's resolutions. I will tell you this. You're going to see a lot of different things out of me next year. I've been doing what I've been doing for a long time, and it's time to make some changes, both in my business, which I'll explain more about as we go forward over the next couple of weeks. Also in my photography work, I'm looking at making changes. You guys know that I've been migrating from primarily strobes to LEDs and having a ton of fun doing that. Oh, gosh, I almost forgot. Imaging USA, by the way, I told you about that. All 3 days, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, I will be doing a live demo for 1 hour, and we'll announce the times as we get a little bit closer. But I'll be doing a live demo with the Stella Pro reflex lights, and we're going to do something crazy with material flying around and using the lights to stop the action. So we'll have some fun with it. So if you're there, make sure you find out when those demos are happening. I'll be talking about it between now and then, and I hope to see you. But for me, I'm at a point where I was getting bored. I'm getting bored with the stuff that I've been doing. I'm getting bored with a bunch of stuff. One of the things that I've always said, and people think I'm joking, it's not a joke. I still don't know what I'm going to do when I grow up. I've done all different kinds of photography and done them well. And it's time for me to change it up a little bit. So don't get me wrong. It's not that I'm going to stop shooting fashion and beauty portraits, but I've got some ideas and I'm finding myself being drawn to some things that I wouldn't have done in the past. So I'm starting to really get excited about exploring this, and I've been, kind of collecting some pieces that I want to work with, and I will take you guys along for the ride, and we're going to see what kind of cool new stuff we can create. But it's time for you to do the same. So you know the drill. As always, have a great week and stay safe. And please go pick up that camera and shoot something because your best shot, gang, it's your next shot. Adios. Hope to see you next week. Take care.